Ooh, there we are. Beautiful boys. Just there on the screen. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining
Hello.
us for this, once again, live rendition of Chapel Bell Curve ASMR. Uh, you may be driving home right now. It's 5:54, stuck in Atlanta traffic, and I'm here with Nathan. And I've got many things I'm going to tap my acrylic nails on here over the next hour, and I hope you enjoy your time. I've got my dog. I'm going to scritch behind her ears, so that's going to be something you may hear as well. Hope you enjoy the beautiful stylings of myself and my co-host here, Nathan.
And I'm Nathan, and my voice isn't this sexy. I just am recovering from a head cold. So, hello.
But those
I hope
fingers
you're.
aren't
I hope
sick.
you're all. Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I don't like ASMR very much, but I hope you're all having a good day.
Do you like
Oh,
this?
I hate it. I hate ASMR so much.
Okay, ready?
The mouth noises. Ironically, it's the mouth noises that get me. Even though, like,
I hate the mouth noises so much.
well, I'm sorry that you've had to edit me in a podcast for so long.
Your mouth noises don't upset me as much. I've gotten used to them. It was a real trial by fire, I would say. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
here we go.
All
Welcome
right.
to Chapel.
You ready?
Oh, yep.
Apparently.
Where is my clicker? I'm just gonna click it real quick. Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve, a stats-focused podcast about UGA football. I'm Justin,
And I'm Nathan.
and today we're going to be previewing the upcoming season home opener with the University of Alabama at Birmingham. That was like, which articles are they? Where do they go? The University of Alabama at Birmingham Blazers, which very exciting to have a home game back in Athens, I guess, for the first time in since 2019, which is very cool.
I mean, it is exciting, right? But
Yeah,
I mean, it is
yeah.
and it isn't.
It is and it isn't. Yeah, that's why I stalled and said all of those things the way I said them, because I'm trying to be excited about these. I'm going camping this weekend, so I don't have to worry as much. But my fellow Athenians, be steadfast in the things that you do this weekend. Be safe, my friends. But what's up?
given that I have a negative test
Uh-huh.
for COVID, I'm gonna go probably.
Oh yeah.
But it still sort of feels like what are we doing? I don't know, man. It's just like I'm vaccinated and I'm gonna go, and I just feel like a lot of, we're already at like 90-something% capacity in hospitals around Athens, and I get it. I get that a lot of y'all like do not listen to this so that you can like think about COVID, and I get that sports is an escape, but I think it's just worth at the outset, even though I'm going to go, I think it's worth at least considering like, hey, wear a mask,
Yeah.
get a vaccine, we want to keep everybody safe, and you taking your drunk ass downtown unvaccinated and unmasked does not keep anybody safe.
So yeah, that's our
So,
COVID
yes.
announcement at the very top of the episode. So
Yeah.
now let's get into football,
Now-
I guess.
Yeah, now that everybody else is like now that we've lost quote unquote 50% of the populace according to our reviews, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this matchup.
Yeah, this is, as we said, UAB Blazers against these Georgia Bulldogs. It's a very exciting time. Looking at this schedule a few years back, I remember it being scheduled, and I've always had a soft spot for the Blazers just based on what they've gone through over the past decade. Their program was killed. Their program came back. They've since won, I believe, 3 conference championships, which is pretty fantastic for something that was effectively dead in 2013 and came back from the ashes, largely due to the hard work of one head coach, Bill Clark. So shout out to that guy. But they tell a good story. So I'm a big fan of a good story, as we all know, and you probably are as well, being who you are, and most people who listen to this as well. And my Discord server has said to, of course, mention Dr. John Knox. It was probably him, mostly him.
Yeah, Dr. Knox, one of, if not the best instructor I've ever had in my entire time at I mean, at UGA or anywhere, pretty much. Like
Yep.
he teaches weather and climate introduction at UGA, and he went to UAB, I believe for his doctorate. Anyway,
He's a good guy.
so
Really good guy.
yeah,
Also, yeah, Board of Education member, former Board of Education member here in Athens,
yeah.
Clarke County. Just a overall good
Oh,
guy.
one other PSA: I am recovering from a head cold, so I know I said this at the beginning, but please, I'm not dying. Just I'm just working through it right now. I'm gonna try to put in like a workman, like sort of plowman's style, journeyman style effort today, but I know that probably the energy is gonna be a little bit down. So I looked up the Winsipedia for these teams, and they've only played twice. And of course, Georgia has had by far the more effective, pretty much everything, more of everything than UAB because of the nature of the programs. UAB has only had a program back to 1991. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that.
Was their first year. Yeah, they have 2 conference championships, as you said. They, UGA played them in 2006, which was a 34-0 win. That was my first year. I think that was like my second or third game as a redcoat. It was hot as balls. And 2003, which was a 16-13 win by UGA, which is, kind of presaged some things to come in the Kirby Smart or the Mark Richt era. I mean, what's the subjective narrative coming into this about these teams or about UGA? Like, what have you seen? I mean, there's not much history to speak of really here. So what are we seeing subjective narratives thing?
Not a whole lot of subjective narratives. The only things that that I've seen are of course, saying how big a deal this game is for UAB. Not because anybody thinks that they're probably going to win. I don't think there's any scenario in which they win this game. I say that now. I'm knocking on wood now. I'm not a superstitious man. I am a stitious man. But there is not. I don't think there are many scenarios in which a team wins. However, with everything going on right now in college football regarding the potential for reshuffling conferences, this is a big game for them to be playing the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs, to sit and show why they belong in a better conference. They are one of, if not the best group of 5 teams, I feel. And so they have a good chance of heading over to a bigger conference and therefore having just building the dynasty further, I think. So this is the best game they'll have all season, the biggest notoriety-wise game they'll have all season. So it's a great time to kind of show off and show what they can do. And we're going to talk to the stats in a second. It's a small sample pool, of course, being just one game, but they look good. They shut out Jackson. I think it's Jacksonville State they played last weekend, and shut them out 31-0. Looks really good, but we'll get into those in a second. I know before we go any further into UAB specifically, there was a subjective narrative, just a headline. Not even that subjective. It's just true. It's a fact that a headline I read this morning and really enjoyed was Clemson falls out of top 4 for the first time since 2017. And it couldn't have happened to a better guy is how I feel about it.
We have a long-standing feud with Dabo Swinney because of just who he is as a human. That brings me great joy. Well, I mean, we're kind of bearing the lead news-wise, dude. Have you heard about the whole JT Daniels thing?
Yeah, we'll get into the Georgia subjective narratives now at this point. Yeah, so there's lots of things going on. There were a lot of question marks coming out of last weekend about Georgia's offense, and that is seemingly everything and anything anybody can talk about right now regarding this Georgia team. The defense left no questions to be asked. However, the offense left many questions. And then we heard about the health of JT Daniels, working through an oblique injury, still practicing, taking some snaps with the first team, however limited. But Carson Beck is now also taking snaps with the first team as well, splitting those snaps and reps. So, everyone's out here talking about how bad our offense is, and then this thing happens. And so are we, I guess, priming ourselves up for another quarterback controversy? Where do you feel about these things?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty possible that JT Daniels still starts. Everything I've heard is that he is literally day to day, not like Kirby Smart day to day, where it's like we all know Darnell Washington is out and they still say he's day to day, but like literally actually day to day. So I think there's still a chance that he starts, although, some people will tell you like it's already been decided Beck is going to start, etc. But I mean, I think this is not an Eason Fromm situation for a couple of reasons. One, this isn't a broken ankle. Nothing that I've heard indicates that this is anything other than just sort of like a nagging, aggravating injury. We don't know if it happened before or during the Clemson game, but we know that, it's now there. If it happened
Well,
before,
it did happen before. Apparently, it was something that happened in a practice in late August, is
oh,
what I read earlier.
okay, so yeah. Well, that really like changes your analysis of the game plan in the Clemson game, I would say too, right? Like if you know that you're dealing with a nagging injury and your quarterback and they have a good defensive line, being conservative makes a lot more sense.
Hmm.
As for quarterback controversy, I really don't think there is one. I mean, I think JT Daniels is just so much more experienced than Jacob Eason was. I think so much more proven than Jacob Eason was and is. Um, I think whenever Daniels comes back, the seat will be his.
Hmm.
If we start Beck, I think at the very least Beck's going to get a lot of run, right? He's going to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah.
I don't know that he'll start, but I think it wouldn't shock me if he played most of the third quarter or some of the second or whatever. Um, but I don't really think that this is any kind of controversy. Honestly, it's too JT is too proven, right? We need
Yeah.
him to take a step forward, but he's shown what he can do even over a short sample size, more
Yeah.
than Eason has.
Yeah, I
Um,
think there's a few scenarios that we could expect out of this if Carson Beck does play or if he starts. Either way, he starts and he does great, and then I guess the average football fan is going to be upset based on these two games because they didn't see one dude throw touchdowns and they saw another dude throw touchdowns or run the
mhm.
ball in. That's the layman's the plowman's football, if you may. Now we're talking about plowman's meals and whatnot. The other scenario is that he just goes out there, I think, and he hands the ball off real good,
Mhm.
as previous quarterbacks have done here at Georgia as well. So we have a great running back core, and we're going to get into stats in a second and talk about how it looks like the biggest chink in the UAB armor is their rushing defense. So I think that's probably the most likely scenario. And then another scenario would be that they just split reps the game, and that's possible too. Get into a situation of a third down passing yard situation, and you put JT back in. So I don't know, but I think it is just a conservative move. It's
Yeah,
nothing about his performance by any means.
yeah, absolutely. I think it is interesting, and we can talk about this more when we get into like what we want to see and what we expect. I think it is
Hmm.
going to be interesting to see what the game plan is because you sort of have, I think, attention in what you want. Like, obviously, if you want to get the win, you just run the damn ball.
Hmm.
And I think you could probably run the ball 60 times against UAB, regardless of what their defensive rank is after one game and win the game. But you also want to develop some continuity in your receiving core. So let's talk about stats first before we get
Yeah.
into like what we want to see.
You want me
Do
to
you want to
run
run us
through
down?
these? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, just to
Yeah.
save me from myself.
Save the boy's voice. Yeah, so we have some advanced stats here. This is all EPA. When Georgia has the ball on offense, it doesn't look great right now. If this was later in the season, we'd be more concerned. But of course, this is after one game against most likely the best defense we will play all season, at least in the regular season. So overall EPA for Georgia on offense, 92nd. Passing EPA is 85th. Rushing EPA, 92nd. First down, second down, and third down in that order is 76th, 93rd, and 88th. To UAB's defense, overall EPA 7, passing EPA 7, rushing is 46. First, second, third in that order is 22nd, 16, and 4th. So a pretty big disparity there between those two with Georgia's offense versus UAB's defense. But I think that after a fairly successful game this weekend, which we expect to see, these stats will look a great deal different. I think that UAB's defense could still enjoy a pretty high ranking overall, but Georgia's offense should go up. But what are you seeing?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, so this is just EPA over 1 week, right? Estimated points
Hmm.
added on average per play or denied per play. So, and I got these stats going manually, and I made a little stat sheet for it. Which, if you join our Patreon, you can see under our statistics channel on our Discord, patreon.com/Chapel Bell Curve. Anyway, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing to me is that this really shows the sort of, I guess, one of the inherent issues in advanced analytics in football, which is that college football you only get 12 samples, right? And so we're dealing with a really small sample size at this point. EPA is a very clean stat, and these numbers are filtered for garbage time. Of course, UGA didn't have any garbage time last year, or last week. But while these numbers are filtered for garbage times, this is still a very, very small sample size. And I mean, I think there are some things you can take away, right? Like, I mean, UAB played a pretty good team, and pretty much like dominated them on both sides of the ball, front to back. Now, UAB's offense doesn't run the ball very well, 87th in rushing EPA. Now, they probably didn't need to. Now, I think it's interesting because, like, you get up early and you sort of like can't afford to run the ball, but they didn't even do it very well when, they could afford to. Although I guess you could also say Jack State knew they were probably going to run. Rushing EPA 46, that's just like average. Third down EPA fourth overall. That kind of stands out to me for UAB's D, just because, it tells me that their passing defense was actually consistently good. They weren't just good, like, protecting underneath routes. Being able to defend third down is a big deal. I mean, like, UJ's overall defensive EPA is fourth. I think that's probably low right now, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think this is also the value of metrics like SP Plus and stuff, right? And it's also the value of metrics because those include recruiting rankings. So, like, if we look at to bring in a couple more advanced statistics, if we look at our team talent composite, UGA's talent index is 1001.79, which is just like a combination of their class rankings over 4 years, counting transfers. That's second in the nation to Alabama. UAB's is 444.37, which is 92nd. So, I mean, you have to, in the same way that we constantly are like small sample size, we're still using last year's data, we're still using, returning production. It's actually true in reverse, right? Like, UGA, like, when we have just EPA, we're not using any of that returning production or recruiting data. So, for instance, like, if we look at the actual ratings for UGA, right? Georgia, in S&P Plus right now, Georgia, I believe, is third or fourth, 24.8 points better than the. Oh no, actually, they're second this week. 24.8 points better than the average team, right? UAB is in SP Plus right now, 64th, something like that, in the 50s. That's 6.4 points better. So SP Plus has this as a 22-point. As a 22-point game. Sagarin has this as Sagarin has UGA at 21.5 points up above the average, and UAB actually, weirdly enough, Sagarin has them at -5. So yeah, Sagarin has this as a pretty big UGA win as well. So, Sagarin has them at 1.29, so still about 20 points. So it's just really interesting because, like, one of the things that these composite power rankings like SP Plus and FPI and FreeMao and even the old computer composites like Massey, one of the things that those are trying to do is to meld the two sides of football analytics that you have access to, right? So you have access to the play-by-play derived stats, but those can be sort of misleading because of the limited number of plays, the limited amount of data, and then you have access to the pre-existing sort of like prior stats, right? But those can be misleading because they don't account for variables introduced after they were recorded, right? So recruiting ranking doesn't account for development and injuries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of why we were on SP Plus for so long, and I still think why SP Plus is so good. And other systems like it, FBI I don't really like because it's FBI is like a closed system. It's a walled garden. We don't know what the calculations are, but we do for S&P Plus. But I think, I mean, to kind of get this ramble back around to UAB, I think this is one of that this is to sort of get into our subjective stuff and how it matches up. This sort of the picture that you get from the stats is the picture that I think all of us have narratively coming in, which is that this is a team that UGA should be better than at pretty much every position, right? UGA is going to have a better class of player, from long snapper to quarterback, pretty much 100% of it, right? And to gunner to whatever. But UAB, for their level of talent, has played well this year in one opportunity. So we know that this is a well-coached team. Kirby Smart and Bill Clark are friends. They have run in some of the same circles. I think they've been on one coaching staff together, I want to say.
Hmm.
Um, this is great audio. Just give me a click. Because now I want to know, because it's going to make me angry if I don't. Let's see. Piedmont, Tuscaloosa, Coffee County, Dothan, Prattville, South Alabama. No, they weren't actually. They were never on the same coaching staff together. But, Bill Clark is like a Alabama guy. He was at Jack State when Kirby was at Alabama. And, there's like sort of a kind of collegiality to that. And I know that they're actually just friends. But I think the advanced statistics and the analytics match up to what our eyes are seeing, which is that, yeah, this is a team that if UGA screws around and acts like Michigan or circa 2007, yeah, they can get beat. But that's a black swan, right? This is a team that UGA should kind of just run off the field. I mean, I think, to me, what feels like the worst case scenario for this game is that UAB sticks around and scores like a fluky touchdown and is up like 4 points in the first quarter. And then UGA is like, screw it, we're going to run inside zone until you stop it. And then they just don't, because they just run inside zone on every play. And, we win 28-7 or something stupid. I think that's like probably your worst case scenario.
Yeah. So what are some things that we expect to see, want to see, think would be good to see if it were to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of indicators of how the game went, like something worth highlighting. Total pass attempts, right? Like I talked about earlier, there's this tension between, well, if you just wanted to get the win, you'd run it 60 times and you'd be real conservative and you wouldn't show anybody anything else. But you also really need to show some improvement offensively and try to sort of develop some continuity. So I think just how many times does UJ pass the ball is a really good indicator of how the game went. If UJ passes the ball like 30 times because they want to, then yeah, the game's probably going pretty well, because you stake yourself a good lead and you screw around with the second and third teams and see what happens.
Yeah, get some reps.
If it's because they have to, that's a concern, obviously, but I don't see that happening. The other one I think that would be interesting, that's just going to be not really like this will decide the outcome of the game, but just more like this kind of shows you some stuff for going forward, some more information going forward is, what are hurries surrendered by UGA's offensive line, QB hurries surrendered. UAB isn't the same caliber of team as UGA, as we previously discussed, but they do have athletes defensively. They have some SEC transfers. They have, I think, an SEC transfer quarterback, but defensively they got a couple of guys on the edge who can run. It sounds like maybe, so Tate Ratledge is out for the year. It sounds like that maybe Jamari Sawyer will move back to his natural position at left tackle, and that Broderick Jones, who is a very, very talented, I think, sophomore, I want to say, is going to come in and take over at left tackle. Jones is a guy who is a technician, who's real big. He can move, but he has the reputation as being still a little bit weak at the point of attack. Maybe not quite the road grader of a run blocker. So I'd really like to see, how does he hold up at left tackle if he starts and or plays a significant amount of time, and B, how does he look on run plays? Because knowing Kirby and Matt Luke, given that they will challenge him by running, split zone to his side, by running outside zone to his side, just to see what he does on run grades. And I think Broderick Jones is sort of the future of the offensive line. So it'll be interesting just to see how far along he's come. And, if he can hold out, if he looks good there, that really bodes well, because Jamari Sawyer is probably an NFL guard and not an NFL tackle. So if we can be inside comfortably, that bodes well for UGA going forward. Things I want to see A.D. Mitchell and Jermaine Burton. Specifically, I want to see Jermaine Burton blocking. I know he's been dealing with some injuries, but like Jermaine Burton probably cost UGA a touchdown on just blocking alone last week. And if he's hurt, that's fine. But I really need to see something out of him, because he really should be one of the leaders on the team. For the record, Broderick Jones is number 59. If you're looking on on Saturday, I always want to know what the number is, because that's like something. It's just hard to tell when they're on the line. What do you want to see?
I mean, you've actually already touched on it. I was pretty impressed and happy about the fact that we called a pretty even game last week. It was both passing and running and balanced across the two. And so I appreciated that. There was nothing too predictable. There was nothing that we did because we had to do it. It felt a game like a game that it was always in our control. It was very much in Clemson control at certain parts as well, but it feels good to be able to do what you want to do and be in control of your own destiny, so to speak. And so I'd like to see more of the same, just with more effectiveness. I'll also add, just for the sake of, of subjective narratives, I would, if we throw it through the air and if we get passing touchdowns, I want it to be touchdowns from Daniels. And if we have to have Carson Beck in getting touchdowns, I would love for it to be in garbage time, or I would love for it to be just one or two. But I don't want Carson Beck to ball out so that we have to suffer through just radio madness and subjective bullshit. Excuse me. That's kind of how I feel about it. But yeah, I hope he balls out for his own sake, but just for selfish reasons, I'd rather him not.
For the sake of my mental health. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So
I hope he balls out in limited action. I hope he balls out when the UAB second string is in. You know what I mean?
That would be cool. Yeah, that's what we want. Ball out. Get it, son. This is a pretty quick episode, of course, but we'll have plenty more to say in the rest of the episode. But we're moving very quickly along here into our over-under. So do you have some over-unders you want to share with me?
Yeah, over under 0.5 JT Daniels snaps in the second half. I think probably under. I think he doesn't. I don't think he snaps. I don't think he takes a snap in the second.
I think it's more likely to see Stetson Bennett in the second half than it is to see JT Daniels in the second half. Just a return to an old friend. What about over under 0.5 UAB rushing touchdowns? Do we give one to them?
No. Under,
you don't think
for
so?
Me.
Okay. I'm going to also say under just because I like the streak. We're starting strong. I'd really like for it to remain that way. I don't want our rushing touchdown to be given
Although
to...
I will say, part of me wants to say over just because I think we might see the third string defense on this game a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change mine to over just to fade you.
Okay. What about... you got yours? Oh, okay.
0.5 Brock Vandergrift pass attempts.
Ooh, baby boy. I don't think we see him this game. I would really love to see him this game, but I think from what I understand, he's still playing with the scout team a whole bunch, and so I don't really think that we get all the way down the roster to Vandergrift.
I'm going to say over. I think we might beat the hell out of this team.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to probably be, it's going to feel close, until it just all of a sudden doesn't, and UJ is going to be up 28-13 or something, 28-10. And so I mean, I don't think it's going to be a 50-point Alabama ass whipping on some FCF school, but I think that it's going to be a pretty convincing win. I just think it's sort of dumb coach speak, but I think defense travels, man. And if they come out and play, I mean, I'm giving UAB 10 points just because that's the way football works, is that sometimes you just give up a touchdown in my prediction. But I think that might be kind of generous, man. If UGA's defense comes to ball, I give them that touchdown to the second team defense, but I just think if UGA's defense comes to ball, they're not scoring.
Yeah.
And even if the offense stutters some, I just UJ's stuttering offense, when you give it enough chances, is going to score some points, basically, is my thought. All right, give me an over-under.
3.5 sacks against UAB. Do we sack them more than 3 times or less than 3 times?
Over. Slam it. Yeah. We're gonna play vanilla defense the whole day, but you're asking me, can I get 3 sacks on 280-pound offensive linemen out of a combination of Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, Tremel Walthour? Come on now.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's one of those things, in the past when we've played smaller teams, we tend to play, like you said, vanilla defense and keep it pretty simple. And
I mean, look, we had 3 of the sacks last week were on 3-man rushes, man. I mean, and they're going to be teams that have better offensive lines than Kentucky or than Clemson's this year that we play, but UAB ain't it. And I will point out too, Like, remember in season 2 and 3 when we were like, hey, like this Kirby defense is pretty good, but like where are the Havoc plays? Where are the Havoc plays?
Yeah,
Well, they're here now, man.
they're here, baby.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, if you got any doubts about this team's ability to cause havoc, like we were getting havoc with a 3-man rush, man. Tom
Hmm.
Walthour like was one of the least impactful defensive linemen on the rush, the pass rush, but he had 2 batted passes. Like everybody's balling.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously you might just not see those guys enough for it to happen. I think that's the not getting to 4 sacks against this team is probably just because either the second team D comes in or Kirby's Bill Clark's friend. I don't know that he's going to be throwing like 3-man complicated pressures against this team once we get up.
Hmm.
That's the only reason to take the under. All right, my last one: 3 passing touchdowns. Over under. We'll say I'll make it interesting and make it a half. I'll say over under 2.5 passing touchdowns by UGA.
I'll say under and say I expect 1 or 2. 3 seems like you said, if we ball, like, yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna say over just because I think we're gonna throw the ball a little bit more, but I don't think we're gonna need to throw it more because I think that if you look at why UGA's game plan was stymied against Clemson, it was because not only did they have a well-coached defense, they had dudes who could run in the secondary, and they were just really just tackling the hell out of ball carriers behind the line of scrimmage. And I just think if you put UAB's defensive backfield in the place of Clemson in that game, UGA probably has 21 points off of just busted plays and yard after the catch stuff.
Yeah. My very last one is over under 3.5 UGA rushing touchdowns.
Windmills. Well,
Oh.
hold on. 4 is a lot.
4 is a
I'm
lot.
gonna say under. I'm gonna say under.
Yeah.
I don't know that UGA is gonna get to like 50 points.
Yeah. I don't think they get a 50
I think
points either.
Kirby likes Bill Clark way too much for
To do that to him.
Yeah, I mean Kirby has shown like he's not gonna like he's not gonna put his nuts in somebody's face like even when we wish that he would. So if he actually likes somebody, like
I wish he would. I'll say over, just because I think this game will stay on the ground for the most part. But I think 4 rushing touchdowns is not absurd, especially with this running back core. But we'll see what happens. And also, I like to just be keep it a little bit different. But what is your overall prediction of this game? What do you think we might see?
I mean, I think that the offense is going to be frustrating. The defense is going to ball just because that's what they do. I think offense is going to be frustrating mainly because we're going to play real conservative. And yeah, we're going to probably come out there on the first or second series and just sort of have a 3 and out, just like an old school frustrating Mike Bobo 3 and out where it's like run, pass. And then I think it's going to be one of those games that's close until it's not. I think it might be like 17-7 in the second quarter or whatever, and then suddenly you look up and 4 minutes into the third quarter it's like 28-7. You're like, what the fuck happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, so I'm saying 35-10. I could probably see 35-3. I just think keeping someone blanked is hard.
Oh yes.
And and UAB is not that bad. So I think you got to give them like 1 touchdown. And of course, I said that about Clemson, and look what happened. But also, I don't think we're going to be playing the first team the whole game, and I don't think we're going to be playing with the same intensity because we're going to be up.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give them the touchdown.
Yeah. I I know it's hard, and I'm saying this against my better judgment, but for the sake of just poetry in general, my prediction is UGA 31 to UAB 0 because that's the reverse of the score from last week for them. And I would love to see Georgia have a resounding win against a team they should have a resounding win against in much the same fashion as I'm laying out here. Yeah, and I feel like the defense coming off of last week needs to continue to show that sort of intensity just for the folks out there that are suffering from recency bias. Because if they see this week that the defense gives up 2 touchdowns or even 1 touchdown, there'll be like, well, I don't know, maybe it was just a flash in the pan against the third best team in the nation. And, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. But yeah, it should be a fun game. I'm excited to play these folks, and I'm excited to watch the game and enjoy it. So it should be nice. But Let's get into our favorite segment, our Ask CBC segment. And if you would like to hear your questions asked on a future episode, make sure that you just get them to us in some form or fashion. We tend to record on Sundays and sometime in the middle of the week, so you can get them to us on Twitter with the hashtag AskCBC, or email them to us, or I've said in the past, and it hasn't happened yet, but I will say it until it does, just put a little note in Nathan's pocket if you see him. The first question comes from Irked Russell. Very first question, are you ready for QB Controversy 2021? Peace was short-lived. This is the part of the episode where Nathan just grunts through it because his voice is gone at this point. But yeah, I think
No, I mean, the idea of that happening hurts me in my soul, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen regardless, I know. It's just kind of how this thing goes. But second question, over under 2.5 UGA punts against UAB. Ooh.
Oh, 2.5. I'm going to say under. I don't know. I'm bullish. They're just going to run the ball.
That's a lot of drives. Yeah, I mean, I'll say over. I'll say 3 is reasonable. But no, I don't know. I'm going to say under, actually. I'm going to say under. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. JT Daniel says yet to start a game wearing a red UGA jersey. If he does not play Saturday, then is it a curse?
Yes, it is. It's the red jersey curse. We just have to be the away team from now on.
It's official. It's officially a curse. Yeah.
That's what it takes to get the natty. Then that's fine.
Cap Falcon asks, do you subscribe to the Sith Lord Jar Jar Binks theory?
No, I just think
you're familiar with this one, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I just don't think George Lucas is a very good writer. No, let me rephrase. That's not true. Let me rephrase. That was a really hot take.
Good world builder.
Excellent world builder. He's a good crafter of narrative arcs. I don't think he's a very good technical plot architect, right? He's really good. He's a really good city planner, and he's a really bad architect. Would be the analogy I would use.
More macro, less
and
micro.
So I don't think that I think that Jar Jar Binks was. So there's 2 ways to. Oh God, I'm about to really lose my voice. So there's 2 types of media analysis that we can apply to this question. One is Watsonian, and one is you can either go Watsonian or what's the other one? Who wrote the Sherlock Holmes tales?
Oh, Arthur Conan Doyle.
Doyle, yeah. So you can either say give me a click there because that's embarrassing. So there's 2 ways to look at this from a media standpoint. One is Watsonian, one is Doylean, and basically Doylean research or Doylean analysis is from the standpoint of just what do we know about the author themselves in the real world, right? We break the 4th wall when we do Doylean research and analysis, and we say what is probably true about this based on what we know about the author, right? So the Doylean school of thought is probably Jar Jar Binks was just a means to an end, right? And a character had to be there to recommend that the the Republic be suspended, and Jar Jar Binks was just the guy in the room that he could make be there, right? Because he had already moved Padme around and blah 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 blah. Now the Watsonian analysis is sort of world building formalism. So it's Watsonian analysis named after Watson, the guy from Sherlock Holmes, sidekick character or whatever, who's the viewpoint character. He's a limited viewpoint character. So Watsonian analysis is formalist in the sense that it only looks at not just the words on the page, but actually inside of the context of the world of the story. So it is sort of like a diegetical analysis, right? So a Watsonian would tell you that it's unlikely that Jar Jar Binks is the actual Sith Lord because of the rule of 2s, right? And so and it depends on whether or not you think the legend canon is real or not. But given that we believe George Lucas's constant insistence that there are only 2 Sith, which I don't know that I do, but given that we believe that that's true, and we're just working in the context of that canonical universe, it doesn't really make sense for Jar Jar Binks to be the 3rd Sith Master, right? Right, and furthermore, if we believe that Palpatine actually is the level of sort of Machiavellian planner that he claims to be and seems to be based on his inability to die, right, and his ability to predict things that can't be predicted, then why would he need he wouldn't need a willing accomplice in the place of Jar Jar. He would just need someone who would make a parliamentary motion. So no, I don't buy it. And I'm glad I spent the last 50 words I'll say today on that. So carry on.
Yeah, we still have a few more questions, but we're almost done. That's the last we heard of Nathan. K Sarge asks, if you could pick a fantasy creature to be UGA's mascot, what would it be? And he added an addendum, a couple addendums. Please rate it on your personal Kinsey monster scale, and bonus points if we can create a fanfic in which they fight between. There's a fight between the fantasy mascots. Let me just add, before while your voice is still sort of recovering from the Star Wars rant, that before Blazer was the mascot for UAB, the mascot was. Oh crap! What was his name? It was
It's not Doylian. It's Doylist. Anyway, carry on. I forgot.
I think it was Beauregard R. Rooster, and it remained Beauregard R. Rooster until I believe, like almost until the 90s. Like it continued in even when Blazer was introduced in the late 70s because everybody hated the original Blazer because it looked like a chicken, and so Beauregard Rooster continued on. And not to say, I don't know if you know of any. Are there any like chicken or rooster like mythical creatures that we could make for the UAB mascot?
Well, I mean the Chanticleer, but
There's
no,
the
the
Chanticleer.
cockatrice.
Cockatrice, yeah.
The cockatrice, I think, is like the closest thing to.
Okay.
If you want to be like mythological, it's kind of like a big fighting chicken. For UGA, well, I mean, obviously, I don't want like a Kinsey scale rated monster to be my mascot because that's gross, right? Like it can't be on the Kinsey scale if it can't consent. That's my thing. Or I think that's just like universally true.
Yeah.
Let me think. What's like my favorite? Are we talking like Greek mythology? Are we talking like any world ever period?
Any world ever period now.
Powerful. I mean, I think it would be like I'd have to do like the Tarrasque, right? Would be like the kind of lame D&D answer. It's like this giant dinosaur thing. I'm like a really big fan of like just like dumb, wild, like 8-headed dragon kind of guys, right? So like I think the Georgia fighting Tiamats was like an chaotic evil dragon god from Dungeons and Dragons would be fun.
I like that.
I could also the Griffins. I mean, if you want like just like what's the most like football mascotty fantasy creature, it's definitely the Griffin, right? It's like a combination of an eagle and a lion, which is like the two of the most common football mascots ever, right? You just like slap them together, and you get a Griffin.
I really
It even
enjoy.
looks kind of like a football player.
I was gonna say there's a lot of really great roller derby team names and mascots, and there's also a lot of really great ultimate frisbee, professional ultimate frisbee.
All right, hold on.
teams
I
as
got
well.
mine. I got mine. You give me yours, but I have my final answer. You give me yours first.
I don't have one necessarily. I was just gonna go into a few of these different names while you kind of riffed, but hit me with it.
All right, my answer is the UGA Merfolk, and let me give you why. Okay, one, not known for their strength. We're going to reject toxic masculinity. We're all about guile from here on out. Two, they can be any color because they're from the ocean, so we can keep red and black because we could have some like coral snake kind of merfolk. Three, gender neutral from the outset, not merman, merfolk, right? Four, a sense of inclusivity because we are all folk together, right? Once a folk, always a folk, right? And five, merfolk is my favorite Magic the Gathering deck. So carry on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought that was probably going to be number one, but I love it. Last question comes from Christy in London. What one piece of Athens infrastructure not connected to UGA would you like to see improved?
I yield the remainder of my time to Justin.
There's so much. I'm going to give a really boring answer, though. So I'm actually on the T-SPLOS committee right now for 2023 for Clark County. And so it's not, my answer will not be a fun answer because my answer is like, let's add some, let's make sure we have some sidewalks and crosswalks on the east side that's been criminally underserved and ignored for the last several decades is really not really, a great answer and not great airtime. But I think other than that, I would really, one of my favorite things that's happening right now in downtown Athens, and it doesn't look like anything right now, is they're redoing the downtown area to allow for greater foot traffic, and they've closed down College right there by Broad to make all of that into a permanent plaza one day. Right now it's just a closed down street with picnic tables and everything, but I'm very excited for it to eventually be done. And those of you that are upset about how bare the downtown area looks right now, just know that they are putting in fairly mature trees that are made for urban development and urban redevelopment. And so the ones that were there before, they were actually busting into the sewers and ruining the sidewalks and roads. And so they had to remove those. They're going to put in new ones that have a more like central root system that will be better overall. So it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Don't worry. And my favorite thing that's going on right now is the Greenway is being finished to connect to the Firefly Trail, which will be super neat. Those of you that are Swamp Rabbit fans, Swamp Rabbit Trail fans, it's going to be super cool. So that's my probably too boring answer. Some of you may have wanted to say the Murmur Trestle, but don't really care about it. Sorry. That's our show. Do you want me to see us out?
Please do.
All
Save
right.
me.
Yes. So this has been Chapel Bell Curve. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else you subscribe to a podcast, of course. You can get in touch with us on Facebook by searching Chapel Bell Curve, by email by searching Chapel Bell Curve. Just kidding. chapelbellcurve@gmail.com, and on Twitter and Instagram at Chapel Bell Curve. If you'd like to support this podcast and what we do here and join a burgeoning crew of degenerates and lovely people, it just costs $1 to support us on Patreon, and you can join our Discord, and you get these episodes early, along with bonus content and the like. And last but not least, if you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to give us a rating and a review. And until next time, y'all, we'll catch you in the Classic City this weekend, actually, at 3:30 p.m. when the Georgia Bulldogs take on the UAB Blazers. And until then, though, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
That's the show. We did it.
We did the show. We did the thing.
It's a
Are we
short
off
one,
air?
but it's a good show. We are now